All right, everybody, you are back with the EmPower Plant crew for another episode of the EmPower Hour. We're so excited. Today we have got a family law attorney. We have got Gena Fournier, and you probably heard that name. Her mother has practiced in family law for many years, and we're going to talk to her. We're talking today about alimony. Who pays it? Why do they pay it? Why do we have it? Is it paternalistic? Is it a holdover from old times when, women went from their father to their husbands and they had to switch the, hand off the responsibility for taking care of her? Or is it an empowering thing where women can use that resource to, get the kind of life that they want and go on to other things that are important to them? So there's a lot of thought on it, and we have a guest to talk about it. We're going to hit some issues and we're going to hear from our panel. I'm going to introduce them right now, but welcome first, Gena Fournier. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you so much Dana, for having me on. This is quite a privilege. I really appreciate it. And I appreciate you and all that you give our community. It's a real honor to be here.
Oh, thank you for making the time. We're honored to have you. And we're going to make good use of it. Nobody gets their hands on a family law attorney for an hour all the time. So we're not going to let this, get away from us. We're going to squeeze everything we can out of you. But no, we won't hold you this. Everybody watches this. This is not legal advice. This is information. This is talk. And you want to know about your deal, you call a lawyer. And this is a very good one if you want a family law expert. So we've got on our panel today, we've got Maverick over buzzing the tower, getting ready for a trial. I'm so glad she made time for us. We got Betsy Brown. Hey, Betsy.
Hey, Gena.
Hey.
Thanks for joining us.
She's literally in the office next to me, but it seems like she's coming in from somewhere exotic. She's got her headset on.
Always.
No, I'll throw my shoe at the wall and make her mad. Okay, we've got Carrie Roan in the house, my law partner. What's up, Carrie?
Hi. Hey.
Okay. Hey. I'm not even going to ask you about what you feel about alimony. We'll just have it come up. We'll talk about it.
I'm excited. This is going to be a good topic. Really good topic.
Well, think about it. We got some high earning women on here, married, divorced, could get married. I mean, something everybody needs to talk about. It's not just a man thing anymore. No. Denisha Hill is back. Denisha
Hello.
is client care coordinator. What do you think of when you think about, oh Lord, alimony?
Alimony, yes. I wonder because like y'all said, women are coming back stronger now. So I wonder, do she see a lot of women having to pay it now? That's what I want to know.
I want to know that too. Tell us, Gena, like in your, Gena, in your practice, I'm just going to put a post-it, Gena. In your practice, how often does it even come up anymore? Is it all the time? It does?
Yes, all the time. And, we think of it as something being paid from men to women, obviously, because that has been traditionally what has occurred. However, we have had cases, we currently have a case where it is the opposite. It is a man seeking alimony from the woman. And, we've also had it, although it's not as common, because marriages, same-sex marriages hasn't been legal in the state of Florida for as long, but that has also come up in the context of same-sex marriages. So, I have a good example if you're interested. So, I was thinking about this. I was thinking about our little discussion, and I was like, if you think of Jane and Tarzan, right? Jane goes to this jungle, meets Tarzan. Tarzan is king of the jungle in his jungle, but he falls madly in love with Jane. And Jane's a research assistant. She's there and she's committed to her research, and she needs to get back to London to process her research. And Tarzan and she get married, and he's going to travel with her back to London and help support her career. Well, Tarzan doesn't know anything in London. He's got nothing to do. So Jane has to support him, They have kids. So the longer that Tarzan is away from his jungle and his kingdom, right? So I'm using Tarzan here instead of, I'm doing a role reversal on you. So instead of, the longer Tarzan is away from the jungle and what he knows and his career there, the less connection he has. So let's say they get divorced, right? Well, if she's only been supporting him for a short period of time and Tarzan wants to go home to his life in the jungle, that transition is a little bit easier. But as Tarzan is removed from his connections in the jungle and he's becomes, more dependent upon Jane, that ability to go back and regain what he walked away from, let's say, it gets a little harder. And so, when we think about alimony, I think that that's what it's trying to accomplish. It's trying to balance that financial difference.
I get that. And I get the arguments why people don't like paying it.
Oh,
And
yes.
I do support a lot of these things, honestly, because I don't think the way it's set up is really an empowerment position for women. Now, don't come at me, everybody. Let me tell you what I'm talking about.
I was just about to.
I know. I wrote a book on this, man, and I wrote a book on feminism. I'm here talking about I don't like alimony. Here's my issue with it. It's I think the presumption is that a woman can't take care of herself. Somebody needs to take care of her. It's kind of like rooted in that kind of belief. And then the other thing is, some people get married out of high school or right out of college, say married 20 years, and then they end up with this commitment to pay for this other person's basic, life needs, pay for them to live, and sometimes longer than they were even married. And, that doesn't seem equitable to me. I can see needing some money until you get on your feet, and it may take 5-10 years for you to do it. But this concept of I'm going to take care of you the rest of your entire life, I can't get my head around. It just doesn't seem to make sense. And a lot of times, it's not like Tarzan could only be Tarzan in the jungle. Tarzan can go get a job. Tarzan doesn't have to be on the tennis court all day. So what I mean? It's just, to me, it's not a very empowering position. However, I can see a lot of people who are like, well, I built this family, I helped you in your career, I did all this thing, and that has value. That absolutely does. But to me, it's more of a property type of an equity type of thing. But this idea that I am so unable to support myself for the rest of my life just because I have to be in a long-term marriage, I can't, it's not rational to me.
Well, and I think that you've hit the nail on the head. And I think that because I think that that's been the focus of legislation and case law, right? So when we argue these issues in court, we have statutes and we have case law. And I think that the way that the cases have evolved over time has been just that where there is an ability to re-enter the workforce, to retrain to a career path, utilizing the statutory tools of rehabilitative alimony or bridge the gap alimony or a durational alimony to enable that person that is the recipient of alimony to create an income stream sufficient to meet their needs. And there's also a lot more we see of an imputation of alimony for individuals who are receiving alimony. I think there is an expectation that unless there are legitimate reasons why you cannot work or would not be able to enter the workforce, I think there's a lot more tendency for the courts to impute an ability to earn to the alimony recipient, which I think is very important because I think they need to work. I mean, if you're like my age, 50, and there's nothing wrong with you, honestly, I'm Dana, we're working. Go get a job, go do something, add value to the world.
Yeah, and I could see somebody say, well, I didn't work when I was with you. But we're never promised anything when we marry people. I can write about that. Okay. And
me too.
No, I'm just saying, to me, it's just like when you get married, you promise to try to do all these whatever, but it is a contract, but it just seems like it's punitive in a lot of ways. And it seems like it's not empowering because it's basically saying, that's all you were able to do. So if you can't do anything else, they'll take care of it forever. It's just not encouraging. But here's my other question. Like if they have a property distribution, and a lot of times if there's alimony, they probably got other assets too. Because you got to have, it's not just about a need, you got to demonstrate an ability to pay the alimony too, right?
Correct. Both
so,
factors.
And then I think sometimes, well, if somebody got a pretty good property distribution, that could be income generating, passive income
Absolutely.
generating. And does that offset their
It does.
demonstrated need for alimony?
Absolutely. The
Okay.
court's required to consider, and so when a court adjudicates a family law case, they follow a format that includes they first have to do equitable distribution. So they have to distribute the assets first and get an idea of what everybody gets before they do an alimony determination. Because if you get assets that are in any way in investments or income generating, or could be, then those assets need to be factored into the factored as an income stream to the alimony recipient to reduce their need component for alimony.
Okay.
So it has to be.
Yeah, that makes sense. But, you know, in other ways I could thought, well, you get to keep all your assets, and why do I have to make mine, you know, work for me or whatever? You know, I could see all the arguments to everything, really. I guess that's why we all have jobs.
Yes.
As long as there's an
That's
argument, there's
exactly
a
right.
lawyer who's got a job. Hey, Carrie,
Yeah.
what are you thinking?
So there's so many thoughts going through my mind. You know, my mom is 80 something. I won't say how old she is, but she's 80 something. She's been married to my dad for 75 years, 70 years. Well, not that long.
That's amazing.
She's been married to my dad for like 65 years. So they got married when she was in her teens. And, you know, she had children and came from a different day and age, right? So if she and my dad had ever gotten divorced, my mom didn't graduate high school. So she would have absolutely needed and deserved every penny of alimony that she could have ever gotten, because her whole life was wrapped up in supporting my dad and his business and where he wanted to live and raising the children and cooking the dinner and going to the grocery store. I mean, that's kind of a little antiquated from what we have now. But so I think alimony has really shifted, and it has to shift with the change in times, right? Because, you know, I would never advocate for myself to be deserving of alimony, because I can stand on my own 2 feet and, you know, be the breadwinner in my family and get a job and have a job and be financially independent if I were to get divorced. So it's totally different. I would never think that I would deserve it, but I would always advocate for somebody in my mom's position to deserve it 100%. So,
and I think most people would.
right.
Yeah, but so
Right.
one thing to note here, though, is that, you know, we're all women who have gotten educations and have a career path. And I don't mean this to imply just women, but there's men too. Some cultures in our community, in our state, some individuals, their culture or their lifestyle or
Values.
their values are what maybe we would consider more antiquated, you know, that that one person does do, like, one person's not educated, one person is the caregiver of the home. So, you know, there are individuals that fall more in line to like your mother's situation, even though they might be younger.
Yeah, but here's the thing though, if they had split up, let's say 45 years ago after a 20-year marriage, that's in the alimony world, right? Tell us this, Gena.
Yeah.
Who gets alimony? What's the parameters for that?
17 years of marriage or longer is a presumption. Now it's a presumption. We know as lawyers, presumptions are pretty significant. So presumption's a pretty big deal. So there's a presumption of permanent periodic alimony. And 17 years, y'all, yeah, I mean, I could have well been married more than 17 years at my age, right? So at 50, I could have been married, I don't know, 25 years. So should somebody be paying permanent periodic alimony for me when, I mean, nothing wrong with me, no reason why I shouldn't be working. But
I think it depends. I mean, Gena, not to interrupt you, but I think it depends on what your agreement was with your husband. Like and I don't know your husband, but let's say your husband had to go through 10 years of medical school and a specialty and a fellowship, and you agreed that the best thing for your family and the best thing to do and what makes the most financial sense was to support him and for you to stay home and take care of the kids. And even though that's kind of antiquated in the way that we look at it, that's still a choice that you can make within your relationship. So
Yeah.
you might be in a situation right now where you gave up 25 years of a career based on your decision with your husband at the time, which is like a business deal, right? And
Yeah,
now
but the
that's
law, this is the
changed.
thing though, the law doesn't get into that. The law treats all those marriage contracts the same. They don't look at the special things you had and the special promises, do they? I mean, they, like your
Well,
culture. I mean,
no,
they've got
no,
to apply the law to it, right?
well, they do. I mean, they do in the sense that currently the way the statute is that there's factors for the court to consider.
Yeah. Where'd you go?
She's a little frozen. But yeah, there's factors for the court to consider. So I think they take all that into consideration.
Yeah, I
The
wonder
diligence of the
because like,
spouse during the-
hey, you checked out a minute. Go back to those factors if you don't mind, Gina.
So they have to look at the length of the marriage, which is the presumption part. They have to look at the contributions of the parties during the marriage, the roles that they played and the sacrifices that they made. That they have to look at whether there's any kind of physical, mental, or other
So that
considerations
comes
that need to
into
be found.
alimony. That
Yeah,
kind of stuff
so-
is relevant in alimony.
Mhm. Yeah,
Wow.
so there are still factors that the court has to consider.
Man, can you revisit, can you reopen a closed divorce? No, I'll
You
tell you
can
what, I had
file
a
a
very long-term
modification.
marriage. I had a long-term marriage and up until the very last part of it, I was not the higher income earner.
Mhm.
But I'm kind of like Carrie. I'm like, I'm not chasing a man for money. I'm
Yeah.
not leaving and having to ask your money. If I'm leaving, I'm gone. I'm not coming back for money. I'm coming back for anything. I'm not chasing a man for money. So
Right.
I don't know, man. It's just, to me, it is not an empowering position. It
But
is
yeah, and so
dependency.
that's
It's
the
a
thing though, is
profound
that's,
dependency.
I think that's kind of like an emotional decision. I feel the
Yeah.
exact same way, right? I feel the exact same way as you do, but I don't know if that's really fair to myself. You know, if I was in a
Oh, wait,
position where I had,
I gave up stuff. That's okay. I think it's
Yeah.
fair if you talk about your values and your culture, what does
Mhm.
matter to you. You
Right.
know, it may not be all you can squeeze legally, but you don't have to squeeze everything. You have the option of not taking everything.
Well, so like, let's say that, there's situations now, and listen, I'm on a case by case basis.
Mhm.
I truly am. I represent both sides of this spectrum in court. I've handled modifications of alimony on both sides. So I'm really not here taking a position, but with you guys, we're shooting arguments back and forth.
Yeah.
So, let's say, Carrie, that, you do make those sacrifices, your husband or wife, you helped them through medical school, you decided to have children together while this process was going on, you devoted all of your time to that, because of because of that, your spouse was able to finish medical school. You've had to move from place to place because you have to do the residency, and then you have to do the fellowships, and you have to do the specialization training and
Yeah.
all of that stuff. And you put whatever career you might have thought you wanted on hold because this has been the focus. And then whatever, becomes a doctor a couple of years, and she has an affair with somebody else and decides this isn't for them. They want to go do whatever with the other person. Okay. Empowering female might be, oh, heck no.
Yeah.
No, I didn't sign up for that. I busted my hump. I washed your clothes. I prepped your lunches so that you would have
Yeah.
something to eat while you were at school.
Took care of your
Just because,
kids, made sure they acted right, went to the right school.
well, and that's an
knew the
investment
right
in his,
people.
right? That's an investment in his business. You invested, money is time, time is money. So you invested your time in his business, and that's worth something.
right, but
Yes, it is.
that's not a distribution, right? Because as y'all know, that doesn't fall as an asset, or that's not
Yeah.
a thing, because he's working for a hospital, or she's working for another medical clinic. So you can't get a thing for it, right? You can't.
Right.
So the only thing you can get that compensates you for all that you invested is what you deserve in the amount of alimony that you get.
Right.
Yeah. One
Which
thing,
I don't think I don't see that as not empowering though. I mean, if you
Right.
just look at it strictly as
Yeah.
business, right? If you're
Yeah.
selling your time to your husband so he can invest that time in 10 years so he can go and make, $750 a year as an orthopedic surgeon, you invested your money in his business and you deserve to get some of that reward, some of that money back.
I see that. But you know what else I don't like about it? Probably just the fear that I may have to pay it one day. This is probably
Prenup.
irrational.
Prenup.
Prenup. Prenup solves the problem.
Mm.
Prenup, yeah. No, one of the things I don't like about it is it's almost, kind of against public policy in some ways, because it discourages their remarriage and their restarting, because they know that it puts it in jeopardy if they cohabit or marry
Right.
somebody most of the
Mhm.
time. Am I right on that? Because I
Oh my
know
gosh.
I know a lot of bees who are shacked up, is my point. And
Yeah.
they're not creating, they're not starting a new relationship with this person. They're not on board. That messes up their kids, or kids don't like it because it conflicts between their two parents that they're still trying to love. But I know the people who kind of run in that.
Oh
I
yeah.
don't like it, man. It just breeds dishonesty. I think anything that breeds that level of dishonesty probably needs a reboot. But I don't want to talk all the time. Let's get to Betsy and then Denisha. Come in, Matt.
Question. I totally understand the concept and all of the points you guys are making. What if you have a situation though where you have somebody who's a spouse who's educated and they've just gotten used to not working and they don't want to go back to work?
Thank you.
And they're intentionally unemployed or
Underemployed, or underemployed. I could name 5 of my girlfriends right now have got this going on. They're paying
Yes.
child support and alimony
Because
because
this is
they're married to
hard.
educated men who are like, I'm cool, making
Yeah.
50 grand a year. I don't like, and then they give the women grief, like, I care about my family. I want to have quality time with my family. I'm not just chasing the dollar all day like you. And I'm like,
Mhm.
it's hard to not kill somebody
Yeah.
when they're
So
running you like that.
I guess my question is, does the court take that into account at all?
Yeah, they do. It's an earning capacity. The person that is being tagged with potentially paying alimony would get a vocational assessment, and they would get a professional to evaluate that other spouse's earning capacity and look at their education, their any transferable skills that they might have, and then any kind of education or training that would reinstate them, I guess, in a marketable position in the workforce. And then they identify what it would take to get them there, if it would take something at all, and then what the earning capacity would be based on actual positions available in the marketplace. So like if there was somebody that had been a psychologist, but hadn't done anything in a long time, what would it take to get their license reinstated? And then once reinstated, what kinds of positions are out there in the marketplace in their community that, and how much would they earn? And then you would reduce the amount of alimony by whatever they're able to earn themselves. And you might do that at a point in the future. For example, somebody might get more alimony as a rehabilitative alimony for a period of time and get the expenses paid to do their licensing or certification, and then the alimony would drop the rest of the time, if not go away, based upon their earning capacity.
Okay. So
I've never heard of imputation actually being what they really would have or could have made had they applied themselves.
Well, I mean,
I
Dana,
never hear anybody thrilled with the
we're
imputation.
all lawyers, but we're not all Dana Brooks. So
I lament that every day.
I know. So it's they have to
We should
take
have a
average,
t-shirt made.
right? So if that person becomes like a world-renowned psychologist, right? Then the other spouse can apply for a modification of alimony when they suspect that their former spouse is
So
earning.
all they get is not having to pay you anymore. Where when they invested in you, they got that great lifestyle that gave them the potassium. So now they've rehabilitated you, and then they just get to not pay. They don't get any.
Sucks. I know, right? There's like, yeah, I don't know.
Well, okay, I'm just glad I'm not paying it.
Prenup.
I would probably have an attitude. I know I would. I know.
Yeah.
It's probably not progressive. It's probably not feminist, but that's just how I feel. Denisha, what do you think about? Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Gena.
I was trying to think. I know people that send checks or whatever, and they put things on in the memo line when the checks go out, like welfare or
Oh my God.
Do you remember that movie? There's a movie years ago
Oh,
with
wow.
Dennis Quaid, not Dennis Quaid, Randy Quaid, and it was called Bye Bye Love. It was actually kind of sad. It was about all these guys getting divorced, but when he would go to meet his ex-wife and switch the kids at the McDonald's, and he goes, "Oh, do you want me to put their bags in the child support mobile? Are those new Michelins?" And she goes, "Are you begrudging me safe tires? Are you really?" It's a terrible movie, but it's kind of a encapsulation of everything we're talking about.
yeah.
Yeah. Denisha, what do you think?
I want to know, what would you say to a woman that says, let him have everything? I don't want nothing. Because see
No.
me, I don't want you to say that if it wasn't for me, you wouldn't have that. So what would you say to a client that says, you know what, I don't want nothing from him, I just start all over? Would you say, well, you know, this is your right? Or would you say, well, you know, good for you?
Oh
No.
gosh.
No,
Well,
hell
I
no.
mean,
You're gonna get her
as
everything
their
you
lawyer,
can get.
I have to tell them what they're entitled to. You know,
Mhm.
you're entitled to this, you're entitled to that. You might be entitled to this. It's possible
Mhm.
that you would get that, but
Mhm.
because I mean, I wouldn't be serving them properly if I didn't adequately counsel them. But ultimately, hey, I've had people just walk away. I've had people, you know,
If
fight
you
for
litigate a
stuff that
minute in a divorce, you at some point you do get to where you just go, okay, I've had all of this I want. I know that this, is not ideal, or I could do better or whatever, but so at some point you just have to say, I don't want to do this anymore.
Mhm.
right.
I think
Mhm.
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's nothing joyful about that. Yeah, being in litigation with somebody you thought you loved so much you want to spend your whole life with them is not fun.
It's not. It really
I would
isn't
not
fun.
wish that on anybody. Well, I
No,
want to
it's
talk about this law. I think, now I could be wrong on this, but it's my understanding this is maybe the second time the legislature has tried to pass something
At
to try
least.
to deal with alimony from the issues that I and most of the white older men have presented. But then the governors don't sign it. And our governor the other day didn't sign it. And then I think this happened with the previous governor. Check me on that. But my understanding is one of the problems that one of the biggest problems was that it had a feature that suggested maybe past judgments or past orders would be modifiable and
Right.
revisited.
Right.
And nobody really wants to do that. And it's legally very challenging. But what do you think about that? I mean, what do you think about making things modifiable and changing the rules about it? What does that give you any pause, or the people in the professional memberships that you're in?
Well, it does. It really does, because when people, so the most concerning part is when there are marital settlement agreements. So when they've come to an agreement on terms, and each party and then that agreement has been ratified in a final judgment of dissolution of marriage. When you're negotiating an agreement, you give and take on various things. So for some people, they would rather have a monthly alimony payment at more and have less in something else that might be inside of an equitable distribution calculation. So they might take they might give up something that they would have been entitled to in order to receive that security of a higher monthly payment. Or they might have factored the amount on another asset. I don't know how else to say that, but what happens is that you might have sacrificed something in order to get the alimony, and then if the legislation comes along and it is modifiable based just because it's been passed and it does away with permanent periodic alimony, then you've lost the entire benefit of what you bargained for. So you don't get that other thing back. And there's so many women,
I see that
predominantly, that have done that. So that's the problem. That's the heartburn for the modifications going retroactive, truly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You're not in the same position you were in.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. Who else on the panel wants to get in on this? Betsy Brown. But finish, Gena, what were you going to say?
No, I'm done. No.
And how is alimony taxed? Is it tax-free for the person receiving it?
Yes, I want to
So-
ask that too. And what about this thing like family support? Remember people used to talk about family support and they kind
Oh,
of lumped
gosh.
it all in. Did that go
Yeah.
away? And they got a the payer got a tax deduction and the other person had to pay?
Well, so, okay, first alimony. So if you're receiving alimony post, I think it was December of 2018, the alimony is not taxable income to the recipient. It's paid after tax dollars from the paying party. So you make, if the person, does that make sense? A person makes $100,000 and they pay $1,000 a month in alimony, they're paying it out of their net income from the gross 100,000, and the person that's receiving the $1,000 a month does not pay taxes on that.
And that's only since 2018 that it used to be different?
Right. So before that, so if you have alimony that's being paid pursuant to an order and agreement that was entered in before that date, that cutoff date, which I'm pretty sure it's December 31st of 2018. The alimony is pre-tax money from the paying person, and it's taxed as taxable income to the recipient.
I feel like that it's unfair either way. Like if there was only some kind of hybrid way that they could share in the taxes, because either way it's all on one person.
So when you
yeah.
oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
When you calculate it, like when the court does its analysis, or when you're sitting in mediation, or when you're discussing the issues between counsels and clients, when you're talking about alimony, you just adjust your thinking of your numbers, like where you're at. So you use net numbers when you're, and to be able to account for that.
It kind of makes sense to me the way it was, because the payer you would think would be in the higher tax bracket and the recipient would have probably no tax liability, hardly any. So it would make sense that they would get the break for paying.
And you know, that's probably the worst fallout of that, right? Is that the person that is making the most money is paying a higher tax rate than because you're absolutely right. Most people who are receiving alimony are in like the 15 to 25% tax bracket, whereas the ones that are paying are in the 36% or higher tax bracket. So
Carrie,
that does
what do you
make a
think?
huge
Or Betsy, you got anything else before we go to Carrie?
No, I'm good. I'm gonna wait. I've got a few more, but I'm gonna let Carrie go because.
No, go ahead, Betsy, because I'm more interested in like this kind of thread, but I don't really have any questions to add. I'm kind of interested in learning about it.
So Gena, what are your thoughts on whether there's going to be any more bills like the one that Ron DeSantis didn't sign? Is this something that's going to keep coming up every year?
Yeah. Oh, it's going to come every year. Absolutely. I mean, I'm pretty sure of it. I think, honestly, though, I think there were a lot of different concerns inside the bill that was sent to the governor's desk. And I don't know, it made a lot of changes at the final hour. So I don't really know what the final draft was that went to the governor's desk for signature. The last one that I was reading might be different. But for example, one of the things that they tagged onto the bill was a presumption for equal parenting, or 50-50 parenting.
Yeah.
And that's something that has given a lot of family law practitioners a lot of trouble, because we know that the judges kind of do that. But it's not codified in the law. There's no legitimate basis for doing that. Rather, what the judge is supposed to do is he's supposed to, or she, gosh, I should never use he, because a lot of our judges are female.
I do that.
Yeah, it's
I do. I go to doctors too. It's ridiculous. And lawyers.
And here we are. Okay. So is that they're supposed to take each case independently and go through, I mean, we have A through T factors. So they're supposed to look at each case, look at the factors, and make a case-by-case decision based on those factors. Because I don't know about y'all, I have teenage daughters now, one just went to college, but kids hate switching. Kids hate switching home.
They do.
They want, especially when they're teenage girls, and I think
They don't
even
want to
teenage
move their
girls-
stuff. They
don't
don't
wanna
like
move
to
the-
do that.
Shit, would you? I mean, my God.
No.
I mean, you know, so it's very difficult for kids, but we're supposed to be making decisions that are in their best interest. And you know, parents, a lot of parents, you know, I think that they don't really consider what's truly in their kids' best interest, because most of the time, I mean, they don't want to switch. So, you know, looking at each scenario, how far do they live apart? What are the kids interested in? You know, how is that going to affect what, you know, their life is going to be like? And so making this presumption that, oh, they could just flip flop every week, you
That
know.
is so untenable. That is not, in reality, that is not easy at all. They need a home.
No.
They need a primary place where all their stuff is, and they can visit or whatever. And then once they start driving, then totally forget about it, you know?
Right.
And then most kids, my God, most children now, Carrie Roan can damn sure speak to this. Most kids now are more scheduled than their parents are. You know,
Right. Right, I mean-
you got to hire somebody to coordinate some of the stuff these kids are involved in.
Yeah. So I think it just becomes really challenging. And, you know, and as they get older, this, sadly, the earlier the children are when a time sharing schedule is entered, it seems like the easier time that they have with it if it doesn't
Yeah.
change.
Yeah.
But then you get the parent, you know, get people in and they want to switch it all up for whatever reason. And then
Or introduce new people in these kids' lives. That is a whole, I mean, I'm not like, I'm telling you something. That's hilarious. Denisha, we've been sitting here making you scared for 45 minutes.
What about adultery? Does that prevent somebody from having to pay alimony? Let's say that the person that makes the most was cheated on, and I'm leaving you because you cheated on me. Does
Okay,
that,
Oprah, I knew she'd Oprah this up.
That is
Okay.
such a good question, Denisha.
Yes,
does that still, will I still
Okay.
get alimony?
yes. Okay, so
That's gotta
alimony.
hurt, Denisha.
I know,
That's
isn't
gotta
that-
hurt.
Okay, so alimony, that alimony is the only time that truly adultery comes into play. When it's on a support, well, not the only time. It comes into play in equitable distribution if
If they're
the,
using the
per-
money in the last couple
yeah.
of years to
Right, right,
facilitate the affair or something.
but the court can consider the adultery and, you know, that circumstance when they are considering alimony. However, I will tell you, judges do not like to hear about it. They don't like to
They
hear
hate it.
people's dirty laundry.
Yeah.
And, you know, sadly in family court, there's all kinds of
It ain't
dirty
nothing but
laundry.
dirty laundry. Well, think about this though. Think about it completely rationally. Just because I'm screwing everybody in the town doesn't mean I don't have to eat. And I have been married to you for 25 years, taking care of all your bullshit. Why do you think I'm cheating on you?
Yeah.
You're terrible.
Right.
So yeah, I want to cheat and I need my money.
Right.
I mean, if you look at it completely logically, you know, I wouldn't have had to cheat if you were decent.
Well, if we go back to that doctor, female or male, that was working, you know, 24/7, I mean, hello, you
Mhm.
know,
Yeah,
what's the other spouse supposed to do?
Right.
just stay here and suffer in silence. No, that's got to smart though, Denisha. You're writing a check to
Yeah.
somebody who's just humiliated your ass. Oh my God.
Well, I'll tell
That's
you,
gotta
those are
be-
some of the most contentious divorces, or where
Mhm.
that one of the parties has been cheated on. I mean,
Yeah.
seriously,
Oh,
those
wow.
can be the most acrimonious.
And
yeah.
don't they always want to give you all these details? They say the judge needs to know
Oh.
this. The judge needs
There's
to hear this.
pictures I wish I'd never seen. I'd like to like have removed from my brain permanently, but they're there.
You know, and that what's funny about that is family law lawyers tend to charge by the hour. So the more they're airing out their dirty laundry to you, it's just costing them more money, and it's totally irrelevant, you
Yeah,
know.
you can-
But that's where
Well,
it kind that's where becoming a counselor, you know, you're an attorney and counselor at law. So that's where the counselor part
100%.
comes in.
Yeah, well, it's true. I mean, you know,
Hey, can you, can you waive alimony in a prenup or a postnup?
yeah, you can waive all forms of alimony except temporary alimony. Can't
Because
waive temporary.
that really would be the court going, listen, there's a need here and, we got to do something to do equity or.
Well, so temporary
there
alimony is
extension
because you'd still be married.
Oh, okay.
So, so the court says
like support, like when you get divorced and you need like some temporary support until you wrap everything up.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
How,
Betsy.
how
Okay.
often, I'm sorry, I was gonna ask, how often can you apply for it to be adjusted when your ex-spouse's income changes?
Ooh, good question. How modifiable? What does it take to modify it?
so modifying anything right now is a pretty high standard. It takes quite a bit to modify really anything, time sharing, child support, although child support statutorily has some parameters, but alimony. And the reason our courts go wax and wane, just like our legislature and executive branch does in whether they're more liberal leaning or more conservative leaning. And right now they're more conservative leaning. And so they don't like to modify final judgments right now. So in order to modify any final judgment in a family law case, you have to prove that there's been a substantial material change in circumstance that was not anticipated at the time of the last order.
Okay,
And
so let me stop you on that. Like if someone is doing well as a, in a profession or something like that, and they were always kind of on this trajectory, that would have been something you could have anticipated, right? Versus a windfall, like they won the lottery or something, that would not be anticipated. So just somebody continuing to do well in their profession, does that get them a modification?
No, because you have to have a corresponding need. You have to have both. So just because somebody has a windfall. So if Carrie won the lottery and she was divorced from, I don't know, Joe, whoever Joe might be, Joe couldn't just file for.
I divorced Joe.
I'm thinking about Joe, our limo driver. I'm like, yeah, I could probably divorce Joe.
That was the first one actually who popped in my mind.
Sorry, Joe.
Okay, so this is happening to Carrie and Joe.
Yeah, so Joe would have to have a corresponding increase in need. So like if Joe had a slip and fall injury and they didn't hire Basic and Brooks.
Yeah.
And
did not go to Basic and Brooks, ended up with nothing or not as much as Carrie Roan and Betsy Brown could have gotten him. Then what happens to Joe?
And Joe wants to go after Carrie and he's got an increased need because he can't work anymore. If Carrie had won the lottery and she has an increased ability to pay, then we might have a match there that would warrant a modification.
Okay. I don't like it.
I'm
done with you. I don't want to hear about your need anymore.
But
that's
that
really hard to get though. I mean, I imagine that's hard to get, right? There's got to be a pretty big change in the ex-spouse's life to warrant a big modification.
They could become disabled. They could get sick. There's a lot of things that don't go better for your body as you get older, believe it or not. So what happens if somebody, next thing you know, you thought they were okay, they're rehabbing. Next thing you know, they got MS, they can't do anything.
So a modification at retirement, though, has its own, is kind of its own exception. So an individual that retires, and this was one of the other, and this kind of leads into the alimony bill. This was one of the other major issues. Okay. So as it stands, if somebody retires from their employment and their income decreases enough to make them unable to continue to pay the same amount of alimony, they can file for a modification on the basis of retirement, even though we all anticipate retiring someday. That is something that's accepted from that rule. So under a Supreme Court case, retirement can be a basis for modification. Even say the need doesn't change, right? So there's still the same need, but the person retires and they're no longer receiving the income that they received before when they were working. Now, but their actual income has to change, right? So if they're retired, but they're still receiving an investment income and pension benefits and stuff like that, the same amount as they received when they were working, then there's no basis for the modification. That's how it is now.
Okay. Would that
Okay.
include whenever they get old enough for Social Security and Medicare? Does that reduce their need?
That's a good question.
Yes. Okay. So let's say somebody, yes, that could be. So somebody gets Social Security, the recipient starts receiving Social Security, right? Then that recipient is receiving an income that has reduced the need for the alimony. So that would be a basis, theoretically, for a downward modification for the paying spouse.
I know someone who got divorced relatively recently, and it was kind of built into it that whenever she reached whatever the hell, people my age, what is it, 67, 69? When
Yes, it depends. It depends on what your birth date is, but yeah, so 68 and 4 months or something.
Yeah, and like, you know, they built it into theirs to where they wouldn't have to go back to court. They just said, listen, whenever she gets on Medicare at 65, you know, you're not gonna have to have that healthcare, you know, thing. And then whenever she gets on Social Security, you know, it'll go down from that. I didn't know if that was something that was automatic often. It sounded like that was something particularly they wrote into that. And I don't know if that is standard and most people have to go back and try to modify it then, or you can get people to agree to that.
So judges can't render decisions that are prospective. So if you go to trial and the court renders a decision, his decision can only be based on the here and now. And then he'll say you can go modify it when things change.
I don't like that either.
But
it just seems like certain things are knowable, because when we all turn 65 and we're still Americans, we're on Medicare. That is that happens.
Right.
Okay.
So, but by agreement,
you waive your Social Security. You know, if you know that's not money for you to say hell with it. I'd rather get it from him or her. I mean, it seems to me those are knowable things, and they are going to happen. They're not speculative. You live long enough; these are going to happen.
Well, unless we no longer have Social Security.
Okay.
But I mean, yeah.
Okay, that's valid. That's a valid argument.
I'm not banking on Social Security, y'all.
I'm not, but it just seems like, you know, it would take a whole lot for that to be changed. So that seems like that's a knowable thing. So it seems to me like that would be part of the calculus, but you know, nobody's coming to me to do their divorces or decide them. So let's see.
But the statute, the bill that was presented, it said that income changes, earned income changes, could be a basis for modification, but it didn't matter whether or not your income, let me see if I could put this together. The paying person's income was only based on earned income, and earned income was defined in that new statute as being like, let's say, I can't remember exactly, but let's say 50% participation in the activities of the business or whatever. Well, I don't know about you, but I know lots of people that they don't work in a business, but they earn money. They get money from the business as distributions, right? Or buyouts, or you know, whatever, stock,
selling shares, buying shares,
exactly.
Capital you
all of that was excluded. That could not be considered at all in the statute. I mean, when you were factoring in alimony in that particular bill. And we were like, so you have somebody that was, you know, it's still in need, you know, Carrie's mom, and, you know, Carrie's father had investment income, but was no longer actively working in the business, sold it to his son or whatever, and was taking $500,000 a year in a year buyout. Well, that wasn't going to be considered on whether he had an ability to pay.
That's crazy. That is crazy. I mean, it's money, it's passive income, but it's income.
Right.
That is crazy. That should be considered. I would think.
We all thought so too. Which is maybe one of the reasons the governor didn't sign it.
I was shocked, man. I thought we would have done that.
Which is maybe one of the reasons that. I
Is
didn't hear
there
that one.
is there a time when the judge may automatically award alimony?
Like without you asking for it?
Right, yeah.
No, you have to plead for it.
Yeah.
Okay.
But if you plead like I do, I say any damn thing else I can get. In my
Kitchen
opinion,
sinks.
and things I didn't think of, please.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
want that too.
Or as
Hey,
my
Betsy.
mom would say, yada, 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 yada.
Yeah. First, before I go to Betsy, I want everybody to understand that Carrie's mom is just fine. Don't worry about Carrie's mom.
Poor
She's
Carrie's
been married a long
mom.
time, but she okay. She okay.
My mom's a ball buster. We don't have to
Yes,
worry
she
about
is.
her.
Oh yeah, she's nobody worry about Carrie's mom. She okay.
Worry about Carrie's dad.
Yeah.
Got two strong women coming to him all the time. Worry about Carrie's dad. Betsy, where were you? You had some questions. Let's hear them.
Going back to the empowerment question we had earlier, what do you do when the person who is paying your alimony, presumably permanently, passes away or has a change in their circumstance?
Yeah.
What
See,
is
it's
there
not
any
empowering.
other?
That's not a good business plan. You're hitching your star to that person's wagon.
Right. And so if say you don't have kids, are there ways to build in some protections, like requiring in the contract of
insurance.
the divorce
Yeah.
contract, like life insurance or something
Yeah.
like that?
Yeah.
What gives people who are getting this payment monthly or whatever, peace that they're going to continue getting it no matter what? Or is there
Yeah.
any peace to be had?
And no, it's a life insurance policy most commonly used to secure, and it applies to child support as well. So, that you'll ask that a life insurance policy in a specific amount be purchased or assigned to the recipient spouse, the person that's receiving alimony, and that the person who's paying alimony make sure that the premium payments are paid annually and you get a proof that they are every year.
But I bet you anything, you don't get any consideration for the what is it, how much it costs? Because if you try to get new life insurance when you get older, instead of transferring some you already have, it can be cost prohibitive. It could be $1,000 a month for term for $250.
Right. Yeah.
So I mean, is there
Or
any
what
consideration that this person, in addition to paying your ass, they also are paying, some, risk manager, some insurance pool of money to be able to get your assurance that you need? I mean, that can be burdensome.
So currently we do consider that, that would be something that the attorneys would argue in court or at mediation or settlement discussions, that the ability to pay is reduced by the amount that they're asking to be the insurance amount. So, if you're negotiating, you might adjust. Maybe I wanted $1 million policy, but maybe that's going to be so much more. Maybe if I just ask for a $500,000 policy, then it won't be so bad. Like those are things that you do discuss.
They do consider, you get some fairness there.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
under
good.
the.
You have insurance for your ex-spouse.
You're the
This
beneficiary.
sounds like a Dateline episode I've seen before.
Lots of people feel that way.
Well, here's the thing, you're getting paid as long as they're alive, you're getting paid. Okay. If they die, you get paid what you would have been paid if they're still alive. But here's the difference and why it could turn into a Dateline. When you're dead and I still get my money, I don't have to deal with you. So I just need somebody being motivated just to not deal with you.
Well,
anymore.
we
If
do
your
know
people
that.
get divorced and they still at each other.
Well, we do know people that do off spouses and ex-spouses for insurance.
It's happened, y'all. Every insomniac out there knows. If you watch enough true crime, you know people try to kill people all of the time.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's a shame, man. Yeah, I
It's
don't
a
know.
shame
That
we're
just
talking about that on a show about
I know.
It's like a recipe
guys
for
are not
because you know
disaster.
everybody who's paying it is thinking it.
Yeah. Well, maybe if you know you're going to be, everybody watches Dateline and you're going to be the #1 suspect. So
100.
Right.
that's a deterrent right there.
Right.
I just solved it. Oh,
Hey guys,
man.
All right, listen,
I gotta pop off a couple minutes early.
I was
I'll
about
see
to
you
say,
later.
we're already done. This has been a whole hour. I'm so excited. I'm so much fun.
Bye,
Very
CR.
rarely do you get that opportunity to just drill down on a poor, sweet, just trying to help people come on this show and didn't really want to be.
Hey, I think we should, I mean, seriously, y'all have questions that I think everybody should know the answers to anyway. You know what I mean? The more information that's out there, the better we all are. So I'm thrilled to be able to be here and talk about it. It's awesome.
Well, you were awesome. You're
Yeah, this
awesome. I'm
has
so
been so
grateful to have
interesting.
Gena Fournier, Fournier Law Firm, right?
Yeah.
Now, how do they reach you if they want to get a hold of you?
Well, we have a website. It's www.fournierlawoffice.com, and our phone number is 850-270-1336. And we're on Facebook, Instagram. So yeah, all the
That's
things.
awesome. Yeah, you have always been so generous. I love you and your family and your law partners, and you've always been so generous with us, and I very much appreciate it. But yeah, these are things that people need to know. You could be a recipient, you could be a payer. You could be in a position where you are considering waiving it, and you really need to understand what your rights are and what you're giving up. My opinions on it notwithstanding, but I appreciate everybody participating. I appreciate Denisha here with her getting to the heart of the matter questions like she does every week. We had Betsy, we had Maverick back. She's getting ready for a trial, y'all. She's about ready to go kick ass and take
Good luck.
names. So, and then Carrie always makes time for us anytime she can. We miss Kimmy today, but thanks everybody for watching. Thank you, Gena, once more, and tune in next week where we'll have another exciting hour of the EmPower Hour on the EmPower Plan. See y'all then.
Bye, y'all.
Bye. Thank you.